Hey y'all, thanks for stopping by. So, earlier this week, Jimmy Kimmel got fired from his job as a late show host, which he's been doing since 2003. I, like many of you, had to turn to the internet to figure out if he was Jimmy Kimmel or if he was Jimmy Fallon, and after I put a face on the name, I then wanted to know why. Several of the posts I saw that even let me know this happened said that he was lying on TV. Some folks referred to it as problematic commentary regarding the murder of Charlie Kirk. And I figured it must have been pretty inflammatory for you to take someone off the air who's been hosting a late show job for 22 years, and we can watch the clip together.
Doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish, okay?
Now, the part of this monologue that got a lot of people upset was the bit at the beginning where he said,
Desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them. And
lots of people took this as him suggesting that the shooter was right-leaning or that he was a MAGA Republican or whatever. And I think this is just a comprehension issue because what he said is,
as anything other than one of them. And
meaning in that little fever pitch of the few days where people were just wildly speculating on who the shooter could be, lots of prominent Republicans and right-wing talking heads online kept throwing anything they could at the wall in the hopes that it would stick. First it was the shooter was trans, then it was the shooter was radicalized at college, even though he had only been there for a semester before he dropped out. They were saying anything other than this could have been someone on the right. There was a running theory that people had that this shooter was radicalized by the Groyper ideology, by people like Nick Fuentes and his America First movement, which is still wild speculation, but their evidence being that the Groyper movement and America First in general kind of spawned as a response to Turning Point USA. The Groyper War specifically went against Charlie Kirk for not going far enough, for, in their eyes, capitulating to Israel. And again, I should say, all of that was wild speculation before a shooter was arrested, before any real motive has been identified. And like he said in the video, many members of the online right were doing everything they could but say this could have been someone on the right. And now Jimmy Kimmel's been fired, or his show has been suspended indefinitely, and lots of members of the right are celebrating this. They're using that old line about how this isn't cancel culture, it's consequence culture, saying that he told lies on TV and that you're not allowed to do that. You have Tim Pool posting about how ABC is a private company and they can do whatever they want, when not even 3 years ago he was freaking out about Facebook, of their own volition, mind you, blocking the stories about the Hunter Biden laptop thing after the Biden administration alerted them to misinformation being posted about it. They didn't make any demands, they didn't make any threats, they just said, this is happening, and Facebook, of their own accord, took these stories down.
The fact that the FBI said any information should be under watch is a First Amendment violation, and any action taken after that, I would argue, is Facebook acting on behalf of the U.S. government. It's funny, like Mark Zuckerberg tells Joe Rogan that Facebook algorithmically censored the Hunter Biden laptop story for 7 days based on a general request from the FBI to restrict election misinformation. I think that's a fair assessment. And you need to understand that means the government is going to big platforms and saying, restrict things you choose at our behest. At this point, there is no argument. The government is actively playing a role in censoring information they do not like.
You have Donald Trump's own son running the whole it's not cancel culture, it's consequence culture line regarding what happened and him being fired. But of course, again, not even 3 years ago, you have him posting about free speech is the fundamental issue of our time and don't let our kids be silenced. The thing about all this, though, is I would understand if there was actually a pouring outcry from people demanding that Jimmy Kimmel be taken off the air for his commentary. That's the cancel/consequence culture that I think is important to maintain a polite society. That's not what happened with Jimmy Kimmel, though. The overwhelming outcry of people requesting Jimmy Kimmel be taken off the air came from the FCC chair, Brennan Carr. In a recent interview with the Daily Wire's Benny Johnson, FCC Chair Brennan Carr more or less is gloating about instructing ABC affiliates to stop broadcasting Kimmel's show and threatening their ability to broadcast ABC over the air. this quote about this kind of status quo is not acceptable around here, and how they need to step up about the garbage that comes down the pipe in the future. The Sinclair Broadcasting Group, who, if you don't know who they are, control about 40% of the television stations across the United States, said that the suspension is not enough, and what they're demanding Jimmy Kimmel do is not only issue a direct apology, but also donate a sizable personal donation to Turning Point USA, which I don't need to tell you is blatant extortion, and I would never do anything like that if I was in Jimmy Kimmel's position. It shouldn't take a smart person to tell you that this is a direct violation of your free speech rights. This isn't like Roseanne when she got taken off the air. This isn't like when Trump got taken off of social media because he wouldn't stop posting to his people about rioting in the streets. This is the government directly threatening broadcasters for hosting people who are saying things they don't approve of. They didn't step up when Fox was lying about the Dominion machines and voter fraud or anything like that. They never stepped up about COVID misinformation being propagated across the more conservative leaning platforms, because the government shouldn't stop you from saying those kind of things. But this was all in Project 2025. This was all stuff that people like me and to the left of me have been telling you about, and many people said that we were fear-mongering about. But of course, FCC Chair Brennan Carr himself is gloating about this on social media, so I would say I told you so, but seeing how things are going, it'll probably be illegal to make I told you so jokes in the future. I would say pay attention to all the free speech warriors on the right, Joe Rogan and all these types who are big on cancel culture and how comedians should be able to say whatever they want, because if they're not saying anything right now, you should disregard them for the foreseeable future. Because they're spineless. They don't believe the things they say. They only capitulate to people in power, and they only preach things that will enrich them or benefit their portfolios and their wallets. It's not safe to be a free speech advocate right now, so they're never going to do it. Or maybe they will. Maybe this will be an eye-opening experience for some of the more wool over the eyes MAGA movement members, but definitely my biggest gripe is I can't believe I have to come to Jimmy Kimmel's aid, but that's what it means when you actually stand on your beliefs. It includes the people who you don't like as well. But I guess until he tries to come for John Oliver and we see the fury of the wine moms in suburbia come up against the MAGA movement, y'all try to have a good day.